Melaksanakan Perintah Kawalan Pergerakan mulai 18 Mac 2020 hingga 31 Mac 2020 di seluruh negara.
Which economically is better? Let's check it out.
Malaysia is a Southeast Asian federation of 13 states and 3 federal areas. It is divided into 2 areas by the South China Sea and is surrounded by Brunei, Indonesia and Thailand. Malaysia is strategically located near the Malacca Strait and the southern South China Sea. The government is a constitutional monarchy with the king as the chief of state and the prime minister as the head of government. Malaysia has a mixed economic system that combines various levels of private freedom with centralized economic planning and government regulation. Malaysia is a member of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation (APEC), ASEAN, and the Trans-Pacific Partnership (TPP). Malaysia's population in 2020 is estimated at 32.6 million as compared to 32.5 million in 2019 with annual growth rate of 4%, while in 2021 it is estimated at 32.7 million, an increase as compared to 2020. According to the most recent United Nations data, Malaysia's current population in 2022 is 33.2 million. Next, I would like to introduce to you about South Korea. South Korea is an Eastern Asian country that occupies the southern half of the Korean peninsula. It shares borders with Japan Sea of Japan, the Yellow Sea and North Korea. The landscape in South Korea is largely mountainous. The government is a republic, with the president as the chief of state and the prime minister as the head of government. South Korea has a mixed economic system that combines private freedom with centralized economic planning and government regulation. South Korea belongs to the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation (APEC) and the Asia-Pacific Trade Agreement (APTA). South Korea's population in 2020 is estimated at 51.78 million as compared to 51.71 million in 2019, while in 2021 it is estimated at 51.3 million, a decrease as compared to 2020. South Korea's current population in 2022 is 51.4 million.
The coronavirus disease COVID-19 is the most concerning topic worldwide. It is also known as SARS-CoV-2. COVID-19 is a newly discovered strain of coronavirus that will cause respiratory infections in humans. It has emerged in Wuhan, China, World Health Organization 2020. The Chinese government has informed the World Health Organization about there are several cases of pneumonia with unfamiliar etiology at the end of 2019. According to the National Health Commissions of China, the patients who have been infected by coronavirus may visit the seafood market in China, which sold live animals. For instance, bats and rabbits. The primary host of coronavirus is humans who eat the infected bats, a source of food. However, the virus also can be transmitted by humans to humans due to close contact. This transmission process is illustrated in picture 1 below. The coronavirus also can be exposed by coughing and sneezing by the infected humans, Shirin 2020. On 24 January 2020, the first case of COVID-19 was detected in Malaysia. There are a total of 2022 cases being detected and 12 cases has been traveled to affected countries and regions. 8 cases due to close contacts and 2 cases from humanitarian patients. Based on the medical studies, COVID-19 has a high transmission rate compared to SARS and MERS. This can be proven by comparing the number of countries which are infected by coronavirus. There are 175 countries infected by coronavirus compared to 29 affected by SARS and 28 countries infected by MERS. South Korea saw its first confirmed COVID-19 case on January 20. The rate of infection gradually moved to 30 by February 17. Then on February 18, media reports surfaced that a 61-year-old Korean woman tested positive for the virus in Daegu, South Korea's third largest city. Adopt patient 31. This particular case is not only represented a critical point that led to the rapid transmission of the virus through the rest of Korean society, it also came to serve as a warning to the rest of the world by underscoring the grave consequences of failing to practice social distancing and self-isolation.
Unemployment is a state in which a person wishes to work but unable to find work. They are classed as a country's labor force, that is, individuals aged 15 to 64 years old who are willing to work. Unemployment is a severe concern in a culture where most people can make a living by working with others. Its negativity consequences include loss, feeling of rejection, and personal failure. Thus, unemployment is commonly used to assess employee well-being. The unemployment rate also reveals a country's level of efficiency in the utilization of human resources and serves as an indicator of economic activity. A country having an unemployment rate of 4% or less, according to Keynesian economists, signifies that the economy has reached full employment. Next, I will show you the unemployment rate for Malaysia and South Korea for 4 years, 2019, 2020, 2021, and 2022. For Malaysia, the unemployment rate in 2019 was 3.31%. In 2020, was 4.5% and in 2021 was 4.21%. For the year 2022, the number of unemployed people fell by 1.3% compared to January 2021. As a result, the jobless rate fell to 4.1 in February. Next, we will discuss about the unemployment rate in South Korea. The unemployment rate in South Korea for 2019 was 7.5%, which was 0.07% lower than in 2018. For the year 2020, the unemployment rate was 4.07% and in 2021 was 3.7%. In 2022, South Korea's employment rate fell to 2.7%, the lowest level since the epidemic. Because South Korea's labor market is still recovering, thanks to a temporary boost from COVID-related services.
Inflation is an increase in the price level of an economy. When there is inflation, each dollar of income buys fewer products and services than it did previously. Inflation diminishes money's purchasing power. However, inflation does not imply that all prices are growing. Even during periods of strong inflation, some prices may remain stable, while others may plummet. For example, despite significant rates of inflation in the United States throughout the 1970s and early 1980s, the prices of video recorders, digital watch, and personal computers fell. For the inflation rate in Malaysia, the rate became lower from 2019 to 2020, but the rate increased in 2021 until 2022. Malaysia 2019 inflation rate was 0.66%, while in 2020 was negative 1.14%. Inflation rate was increased 3.2% in 2021 and 3.05% in 2022. For South Korea, in 2019, inflation rate was 0.38% and increased to 0.54% in 2020. In 2021, the inflation rate in South Korea amounted to about 2.5% and grew by roughly 4.1% in March 2022. As a result, Malaysia was a good in inflation rate compared to South Korea because the inflation rate is less than 4%.
Next, let's know what impact has COVID-19 had on the Malaysian economy. With a high unemployment rate and a decline in the value of Malaysian ringgit relative to the US dollar, COVID-19 effect on Malaysian economy may be noticed. There are 508,200 unemployment people in Malaysia as of 2019, according to the country's 3.3% unemployment rate. The COVID-19 pandemic had a significant negative impact on Malaysia's economy. By contrasting the unemployment rate in Malaysia, this may be demonstrated. The unemployment rate is 3.2% in January 2020, but it kept rising until May 2020, when it reached 5.3%. On the other hand, the relative level of economic health can be determined by the foreign exchange rate. This is because the foreign exchange rate plays a fundamental role in the country's level of trade. Malaysia's exchange rate for March 2019 is 4 ringgit 8 cents in exchange for 1 USD, and it has depreciated to 4 ringgit 26 cents in exchange for 1 USD in July 2020. Weaker exchange rate will lead to cost push inflation as the cost of important raw material are rising. This will impact almost all the sector, especially the manufacturing sector in Malaysia, as most of the machinery are imported from China and Japan. Weakened currency adversely affect the purchasing power of Malaysian ringgit, as more Malaysian ringgit is required to exchange for the USD dollar. This means that living standard of citizens in Malaysia decreased due to the lower purchasing power. Next, let's see what impact has COVID-19 had on the South Korea economy. The pandemic had a significant impact on private spending and the job economy in its yearly basis. Contact limitation and social distance policy decreased private consumption, with real household spending falling, particularly in transportation, lodging, and cultural activity. This was followed by a dramatic reduction in service sector demand, particularly in the hospitality, transport, and the logistics industry. In 2020, the unemployment rate grew to 4%, with young people bearing the brunt of the burden. In 2020, youth unemployment rose to 9%, but the extended unemployment rate, which includes unemployed youth who are not recovered by the unemployment rate, was nearly 3 times higher. While this indicator improved slightly during the epidemic, the quick rebound of Asia's fourth largest economy since the end of 2020 has been entirely attributed to strong export performance. South Korea export increased by 45% 8.6% year-on-year in May 2021, the fastest rate in 32 years. This expansion was mostly driven by the information and communicating technology (ICT) industry, with semiconductor export reaching an all-time high in 2021.
Next, we will discuss about how both countries overcome the unemployment and inflation issues. Malaysia overcome the unemployment issue by creating a detailed picture of people who need assistance to keep their job or who are looking for new ones. Country, region and city are rapidly developing detailed view of at-risk workplaces and additional level demand by sector, occupation, demography and geography. The viewpoint has been narrowed to small business and the most vulnerable workers, including those in the gig of economy and the informal sector. Next, the Malaysian government creates smart cross-sector solution to get that help as soon as possible. As government prepare to reopen the economy after it has been frozen, they are looking for smart ways to maximize job opportunity while also protecting against new infection in accordance with global guidelines and local public health agency. Again, a special emphasis is required to restart and support small business, which employ the majority of people in most countries. At the same time, government and business are developing new mechanisms to assist people who thus undertake with paying relocate job where labor demands the outnumber supply and quickly acquiring the skills required for the new role. South Korea overcome the inflation by avoiding some of the harsh long-term limitations such as lockdown and business closure, which have caused troubled economy in many high-income countries. For example, the government lifted restrictions again in October after tightening them in August because of the church epidemic and in late September due to a national vacation. However, there was substantial economic disruption in South Korea, including significant job losses. In response, the government offered low-interest loans to job seekers with low incomes, unemployment insurance subsidy for business, and payroll subsidies. Additionally, the government reduced insurance costs for firms and individuals participating in social safety net programs. A disaster relief payment was given to every household, regardless of incomes. Malaysia government overcome inflation by boost law enforcement. Enforcement employees were added in order to conduct comprehensive price monitoring of items. Traders are also obligated to price each item they sell. Any dealer seen selling product without a price tag will be punished. Traders are not permitted to charge more for items than the government allows. Anyone who disobeys will face the consequences. The government also took attempts to control growing commodity costs by offering subsidy to manufacturers. This seeks to minimize the manufacturer production expenses. The government, for example, pays subsidy to food producers. As a result, the producer will be able to sell the goods at a lower price. Subsidizing oil indirectly reduces the cost of moving product, which reduces the price of goods. Price stabilization was the new junta's first priority in terms of the economy. The government, under direction of senior economic advisor Kim Jae-il, accomplished this goal by expanding public skills training programs for high-demand occupation, allowing more imports, restructuring business in strategic industries so that they were less dependent on low-interest loans, and enacting a wide range of other reforms. For example, officials pushed business to give up stake in prestigious industry and accept competition from foreign goods on the domestic market, while workers were asked to delay demands for better salaries. Kim Jae-il engaged the whole public sector to create consensus among a society. All civil servants and government representatives, including the president, received training on how to communicate clearly about the nation's economic difficulty and promote the reform initiative. In addition to hosting lectures and seminars on inflation, educational institutions act as a forum for the government's plans to deal with this volatility.
Next, which country can adapt to the pandemic of COVID-19, whether Malaysia or South Korea?
In 2020, Malaysia ranked 18 compared to South Korea that ranked 9 among the world. Malaysia's average score at that time was 62.2%, while South Korea was 70.2%. The index score that really takes into 6 aspects, namely prevention, detection, level of response, health system, compliance with international norms and risks. In Malaysia, based on the ranking that has been released on 29 January 2021, compared with South Korea, Malaysia ranked 16 while South Korea ranked 20. Among the world with average score 71% for Malaysia while 69.4% for South Korea. The reason why Malaysia become higher than South Korea in 2021 because the factors effect spread the COVID-19 to others is the total population in each country. Based on the data, amount of the population in Malaysia was the lowest than South Korea, even though in 2020 Malaysia ranked lower than South Korea. It can conclude as the lowest population in the country, the more advantage in dealing with the crisis.
The COVID-19 epidemic and the enormous containment measures that follow have fundamentally altered how the economy functions. Beyond the immediate effect, there are other pathways that have structural effects on the dynamic of inflation over the long run. However, as we move towards a new normal, there is a sizable level of uncertainty regarding the estimation of inflation and growth trajectories in the future, a sentiment shared by many nations. Although things have started to stabilize, it is apparent that we are still in danger. Therefore, we need to be more vigilant as we continue to monitor any changes in inflation dynamic. In order to do this, the bank will keep a close eye on price movement and inflation expectations, supported by real-time and high-frequency indicators, as well as work with business partners to obtain further information. In order to maintain anchored price expectations, the bank will also continue to inform the public in a transparent and timely manner about inflation developments and prognosis.